Is it safe to start? Okay, awesome. All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Agoura Hills Planning Commission meeting. Please silence all cell phones and other electronic devices. If you wish to speak or submit a written comment, please complete a comment card for each item and submit to the secretary prior to the public comment portion of the item. I'm going to call the meeting into order. I'm going to defer to Commissioner Reinhardt, Vice Chair Reinhardt, for the Pledge of Allegiance. Great, thank you. If we could call for the roll call, I will defer to our secretary.
Good evening. Commissioner Platzer, Commissioner Sharon, Commissioner Stein,
Here.
Vice Chair Reinhardt,
Present.
Chair Roth.
Here.
Chair Roth, you have quorum with Commissioner Sharon absent.
Great, thank you. So Commissioner Sharon has submitted a request tonight for an excused absence. May I have a motion tonight and a second to approve her request?
Commissioner Stein makes a motion to approve Commissioner Sharon's request to be excused.
And a second?
Commissioner Merrill Platzer makes a second
Great,
for
thank you.
Bridge Sharon to be excused.
Appreciate it. I will defer to our city clerk, our secretary, for a roll call vote.
Commissioner Platzer,
Aye.
Commissioner Stein,
Aye.
Vice Chair Reinhardt,
Aye.
Chair Roth.
Aye.
Chair Roth, you have approval 4-0.
Great, thank you. And we will now move on to the approval of tonight's agenda. And we will also need to approve. So I will ask for a motion and a second to approve the agenda. Please state your names.
Vice Chair Reinhardt moves to approve the agenda.
Commissioner Stein seconds.
Great, thank you. I'll now defer to our secretary for a roll call vote.
Commissioner Platzer,
Aye.
Commissioner Stein,
Aye.
Vice Chair Reinhardt,
Aye.
Chair Roth.
Aye.
Chair Roth, you have approval 4-0.
Appreciate it. Moving along quickly, we are going to move to the public comment section of tonight's agenda. This section is reserved for persons wishing to speak on items not listed on the agenda that are under the subject matter jurisdiction of the Planning Commission. Public testimony is limited to 3 minutes per speaker, and a speaker's time may not be transferred to another speaker. Persons addressing the Planning Commission shall not engage in disorderly conduct that disrupts or otherwise impedes the orderly conduct of the meeting. I will now defer to our secretary.
Thank you, Chair Roth. No written public comments have been received and no speaker cards have been submitted.
Great, thank you. I will move to tonight's consent calendar item. This section is reserved for persons wishing to speak on items on the consent calendar. I will now just defer to our secretary if there are any public comments that have been received.
Thank you again. No written public comments have been received and no speaker cards have been submitted.
Great, thank you very much. Are there any questions from the commission on tonight's consent calendar? Seeing none, great. I will now call for a motion and a second to adopt the consent calendar. And will you please state your names?
Merrill Platzer, aye.
It's fine. Just you can say Merrill Platzer moves for for tonight's agenda or consent agenda. Yeah.
Merrill Platzer approves the agenda.
Great. And can we get a second?
Commissioner Stein seconds the motion.
Great. And I'll defer to the secretary for tonight for our roll call vote.
Commissioner Platzer,
Aye.
Commissioner Stein,
Aye.
Vice Chair Reinhardt,
Aye.
Chair Roth.
Aye.
Chair Roth, you have approval 4-0.
Great. Moving on to our public hearing for the evening. Our next item will be to conduct a public hearing and specifically a public scoping meeting to receive public comments for notice in preparation of a programmatic environmental impact report for the City of Agoura Hills Bicycle Master Plan. I will now open the public hearing. And before we move to our civil engineer, Charmaine, I'm going to pass it over to our Community Development Director, Denise Thomas.
Thank you, Chair Roth. My name is Denise Thomas. I'm the Community Development Director. This item that you guys are going to be hearing from Charmaine and from our consultant is kind of unique. I don't believe any of you have ever sat through a scoping meeting, and so I kind of wanted to set the table before Charmaine provided you with feedback. So the purpose of tonight's meeting is for us to share with you the project description and to share with you the items that we're going to be studying as part of the environmental document. Tonight, we are not going to dive into the details of the bicycle master plan. There'll be an opportunity for that later, and the consultant will kind of walk you through what that timeline is. So what we're looking for is, did we capture all of the impacts that you believe we should be looking at? And if not, if there's something you believe we should consider, we would ask that you provide us with that information. So I just wanted to make sure that you were aware that we weren't diving into the details of the bicycle master plan, but rather looking at what impacts it might have and asking our consultant to study that.
Thank you very much for the clarification there. At this stage, I'll move to and defer to our senior civil engineer, Charmaine Yambao, for the staff presentation. Thank you very much.
Good evening, Honorable Chair Roth, Vice Chair Reinhardt, and Planning Commissioners. I'm Charmaine Yambao, the city's senior civil engineer, and tonight we have joining us Ms. Taylor Freeman, our lead environmental consultant for the Bicycle Master Plan project. Tonight is the beginning of the first steps to approval of the city's Bicycle Master Plan. Staff will present a brief background of the Bicycle Master Plan and the environmental overview for the project. Again, there's no decision or action that's required of the Planning Commission tonight. The City of Agoura Hills is a haven for cyclists of all kinds. Most notably, Agoura Road is a regular route among professional and recreational cyclists, with regular sightings of pelotons on any given day during the week. The city has an existing bicycle network of approximately 1.3 miles of bicycle routes and 9.2 miles of bicycle lanes. The city has made it a priority to provide safer streets for bicycling as a viable transportation option every day. Taking in consideration the city's existing network, neighboring and regional plans related to biking and trails, identifying areas of improvements, and developing improvement design standards, the Bicycle Master Plan proposes to lay out a diverse network of interconnected bicycle corridors linking local and regional destinations, encourage bicyclists of all types, increase and encourage bicycling in Agoura Hills as a viable alternative mode of transportation, and create options and programs to support the existing and future population of the city. Since the city's initiation of the Bicycle Master Plan, community engagement has been integral to its development. Community input and involvement were crucial to identifying barriers to bicycling. To achieve that, the community engagement process was designed to include the involvement of a broad spectrum of stakeholders, working towards a common goal of creating safer roadways for bicycling. The community engagement strategies utilized for the Bicycle Master Plan included an online survey, first to get a read on current behavior and ways to encourage the shift to bicycling as a viable transportation option. We created a project space on the city's website and conducted 2 community workshops on March 22nd and July 12th of 2022 up at the Event Center. We had several social media announcements. We conducted stakeholder outreach with both the Los Angeles County Sheriff, Las Virgenes Unified School District, local city and county partners, and local homeowners associations. And we held several community events, including a Strava challenge that was held in May, Bike Safety Month, and it was encouraging people to bike to work. And Reyes Adobe Days Rad Bike Rides, which I'm happy to say we started that on the city's 40th year, and it continues today, every year. The final draft of the Bicycle Master Plan was released in August 2022. It's posted on the city's website and announced through the various social media sites for the public to review and comment prior to its final adoption. The website is listed here for the Commission and the community attending the meeting tonight or watching remotely to take note and encouraged to participate in the public review of the Bicycle Master Plan. The project components to be analyzed in the Programmatic Environmental Impact Report include the Bicycle Master Plan that proposes to build upon the city's existing bicycle facilities with 30.1 miles of new bikeways and bikeway improvements to create a network of diverse bicycle corridors providing access to local and regional destinations, making bicycling more practical and desirable for a broader range of people. The city also seeks to prioritize implementation of 2 projects within the Bicycle Master Plan. The Medea Creek Pathway, it's a 2-mile bicycle path along the Medea Creek Channel, and it would offer a parallel alternative to biking on Canaan Road. Agoura High School Connection, which is a 0.3-mile bicycle path from the intersection of Agoura Street, Thousand Oaks Boulevard, to the intersection of Easterly Road and Fountain Place, and is adjacent to Agoura High School. A VMT mitigation and exchange program, banking exchange program, which would provide the city an option to establish a mitigation opportunity for projects exceeding the CEQA VMT threshold. The funds would be used to implement projects identified in the Bicycle Master Plan, and a general plan amendment. Minor amendments to the general plan, infrastructure, and community service element ensures consistency with the Bicycle Master Plan. Presented here on this slide is the proposed bicycle network within the Bicycle Master Plan. The recommendations shown here propose to form a comprehensive backbone network on primary arterial roadways and facilities on local streets. A total of 11.5 miles of new bikeways and bikeway improvements are proposed by the Bicycle Master Plan, which includes new Class 1 multi-use path, shown by the dashed red lines, Class 4 separated bike lanes, shown by dashed yellow lines, new Class 2 bicycle lanes, shown in dashed green lines, and enhancements to the existing Class 2 bicycle lanes in the city, shown in solid green lines on the map. This slide provides a visual of each of the 4 different bicycle classes that I just talked about. On the upper left-hand corner of the slide is a Class 1, which is a 2-way facility dedicated to non-motorized users and completely independent of the roadway. On the upper right-hand side of the slide is a Class 2. It's a 1-way lane dedicated to bicyclists on the roadway with motorists. On the bottom left-hand side is the Class 3. These are designed routes on low-speed, low-volume roadways. Motorists and cyclists share the road. And last is the Class 4. It's a more protected version of the Class 2 bike lane, but includes both horizontal and vertical buffers from the vehicles, protecting the bicycles from the vehicles. Now I'd like to hand over the presentation to Ms. Taylor Freeman to provide the environmental overview for the project.
Thank you, Charmaine. Good evening, Chair, Vice Chair, and Commissioners. My name is Taylor Freeman. I am a senior environmental planner. I'm a CEQA practitioner. I'm here tonight on behalf of Rincon Consultants to support city staff and the Bicycle Master Plan project. I'm going to take just a few minutes to go over the CEQA process and tell you also a little bit about the scoping process. So CEQA, or the California Environmental Quality Act, was passed in 1970, and at its core, it's focused on public discourse and public disclosure. It requires that we analyze the environmental impacts of a project and take those impacts into consideration before making a decision on a project. So we do that through preparation of environmental review documents, oftentimes environmental impact reports, or EIRs. The EIR is an informational document for decision makers and the public that identifies potential significant environmental impacts. And in addition to simply disclosing the anticipated environmental impacts, CEQA also requires that we seek to minimize those impacts, reduce them, or avoid them through what are called mitigation measures. So to that end, in addition to just the EIR, we'll prepare a mitigation monitoring and reporting program. So this will take the form of a detailed table. It will lay out what the mitigation requirements are, and it will explain who is responsible for seeing them out. CEQA also requires an analysis of alternatives to the proposed project. So an alternative is going to seek to reduce impacts by modifying the components of a project, but they must still fulfill the project objectives. So the first step in the CEQA process is the circulation of a notice of preparation of the environmental impact report. During this time, the lead agency solicits input on the content of the draft EIR. So the City of Agoura Hills, in this case, is the lead agency for the proposed bicycle master plan project. And the notice of preparation for this EIR was published on January 13th. We're currently on this initial first step, and the purpose of the scoping meeting is to solicit comments on the content of the draft EIR that we will prepare. Comments are going to be collected until the close of the scoping period, which is February 17th. Following the close of the scoping period, the draft EIR will be prepared, and then it will be published for a second review period of 45 days. During that second review period, comments are again solicited, both from members of the public and from agencies and interested parties. But those comments are focused on the adequacy of the draft EIR that we prepare. Following the close of the draft EIR circulation period, the final EIR will be prepared. It will include a formal response to all comments received on the draft EIR. It will include any revisions that are required to the draft EIR, and it will include that mitigation monitoring and reporting program that I talked about earlier. The final EIR will be published, at which time all responsible agencies will consider the final EIR. The lead agency will make a decision on the project, and the lead agency will make a decision on whether or not to certify the EIR. So as I mentioned, we are here tonight to receive scoping comments. Scoping invites agencies, interested parties, and members of the public to provide input on the environmental analysis that we are going to conduct. Scoping comments can suggest specific environmental topic areas. It can request we identify potential issues of concern, can suggest alternatives to the proposed project. It can also propose possible mitigation measures to reduce those environmental impacts. Scoping comments can also suggest specific approaches that we take to the environmental analysis or any other environmental considerations for the EIR to cover. So if anyone this evening would like to provide a comment, we encourage you to do so in writing. We have comment cards and pens available. In just a bit, I'll provide you a little bit more information on where comments can be submitted, how they can be submitted, and when they need to be submitted by. While by no means required, we do recommend you frame your comment as shown on the slide here. I request that the PEIR consider and then fill in the blank. Note that unlike the comments received during the public review period after the EIR is published, the scoping comments do not require a formal response. Instead, we will summarize the comment in an introductory chapter of the EIR, and then we'll point to where in the EIR that comment was discussed and considered. Regarding the alternatives, I do want to emphasize that we are currently in this scoping phase, and so the project as proposed has not been approved, and the EIR alternatives have not been fully defined. So if you have any recommendations for specific alternatives you'd like to be considered in this EIR, please do recommend those in a comment during the scoping period. So this graphic on the slide here gives an overview of all of the environmental topics that will be considered in the EIR. These topics are also included in Appendix G of the CEQA guidelines. Those are available online if you need to go back and reference them later. For some of these topics, it can be very easily and quickly determined that there are no potential for significant effects. For those topics, we'll address them very concisely in a single chapter of the EIR that's called the Effects Found Not to Be Significant chapter. And then there are other topics that require a bit more detailed analysis, so those will be contained in their own chapter. We'll include some information about the environmental setting and the regulatory setting specific to that topic. So that's what you can expect to see in the EIR. So again, we're at the beginning of the CEQA process here, and we're just starting to embark on the environmental analysis. We're seeking input on the scope of the document. So if there's a key environmental issue that you think should be specifically considered, or an alternative or a mitigation measure that you'd like to see included, please provide that information in a comment during the scoping period. Comments are due at 5 p.m. on February 17th. There are a variety of ways that you can submit comments. You can do so via snail mail or email at the addresses provided on the slide here. These addresses are also provided on the notice of preparation. We have hard copies of those tonight as well, also available online. And again, we have those comment cards, and the comment cards have these addresses. You can also fill out a comment card tonight and hand it to city staff, or fill it out and mail it in later. Another option would be to provide a verbal comment tonight. We will take note on the verbal comment, and we will summarize that in the EIR. And finally, the schedule here, just a quick overview. So, we're currently within that first public comment period. Another public comment period will commence when the draft EIR is published, and we're currently anticipating that to occur in the summer or fall of 2025. The second review period is going to extend for 45 days, and then following the close of that period, the final EIR will be prepared. We currently anticipate certification of the EIR and project approval in early spring of 2026. And that concludes our presentation. Commission, thank you so much for your time and attention tonight. Charmaine and I are available for any questions that you may have.
Great, thank you so much to the both of you for tonight's presentation. Before we continue, would like to defer to our commission if there are any questions of staff. I suppose then, Chair Roth, I'll ask two quick questions. In advance of tonight's meeting, did we receive any public comments? I know we don't have a robust crowd here tonight, but curious to know if anyone's emailed or done the snail mail route.
I've received none.
And then my second question is based off of, if we can go back to the wheel of potential areas where this one, yeah. What do we anticipate? I know you had mentioned some are just going to kind of be like right off the top be of no concern from an impact perspective, but like what are the core areas that you think might be of like will receive their own chapters, so to speak?
Sure. So certainly biological resources for some of those class 1 facilities that Charmaine was mentioning earlier. Those are separate from the existing roadway. So they might be in some vegetated areas. We'll want to look at that. Cultural resources as well. We know that there is some cultural sensitivity in the city, so we'll want to take a hard look at that and make sure that no impacts there. We may look at aesthetics and make sure that visual consistency is achieved. Things like air quality and noise for construction impacts will also be considered. Those are just kind of some core topics that we'll be covering.
Great, thank you. I'll ask one more and then I'll defer over to you. My last question is, given the fact that we haven't received a ton of public comments, and I know that we're kind of in the very initial stages, will the city be promoting the opportunity for the public to weigh in, given that we only have a few more days for this first phase of a comment period? And I know I have seen the social media, but I just want to make sure that our residents have an opportunity to really weigh in at this initial phase.
That's a great comment. Yes, we can continue to post. We do a lot of social media output on this, and we'll continue to do that.
Have we done any outreach to the bike shops? I know we have some stellar bike shops in the city. That could be a good opportunity to capture some resident input.
During the development of the bike master plan, we had continued, working with Serious Cycling, but I can certainly reach out to I can't remember her name, Jennifer. Yes.
Great, appreciate it. I'll defer to Commissioner Reinhardt, Vice Chair Reinhardt, sorry.
Thank you, Chair Roth. So based on your question, I had a follow-up regarding CEQA. Does the city at this stage work with other agencies? So when, I was reading some of the preparatory documents for this, I noticed that there are some interagency cooperations like with the water district. And I know one of the things that's popped up in my head regarding this plan is access to water for, potable water for our bicyclists along the way. So is that something that's considered at this stage, or would that be further along the process?
So there are responsible agencies and other agencies that often coordinate with the city, and they have been notified of the project and have been provided the NOP. I don't have the list of agencies in front of me, but it has been distributed to them as well. Any agencies that comment specifically during the notice of preparation and the scoping period will be provided an opportunity to comment during the second review period as well. They'll be notified when the draft EIR is released. We haven't received any comments from those agencies yet, but we'll be certain to go through the correct noticing procedures in the future so they have the opportunity to comment.
One more question. I noticed that the deadline is on the 17th, and that's a federal holiday. So are the comments due from the public before the federal holiday, or would they be accepted on the first business day after?
They can be accepted after. It's not a hard deadline. Any comment that's received will go into the project record. So any comment that's received on the following day would be included as well.
Great, thank you.
Any last questions over there? I've one little burning question. The Medea Creek 2-mile extension, is that going to connect into the existing bike path that Oak Park has along Medea Creek too?
Yes, I did. I should have mentioned it's from the northerly limits of where Medea Creek is all the way down to Agoura Road.
So that will include the Oak Park?
Yes, it will.
Okay, great. Great. So seeing that we have no other questions for now, I will defer to our secretary for any public comments that have been received. If you have something to distribute to the Planning Commission, there is no one in front of us, please hand it to our secretary. Public testimony is limited to 3 minutes per speaker, and the speaker's time may not be transferred to another speaker. Secretary, do we have any public comments for tonight?
No written public comments have been received and no speaker cards have been submitted.
Great, thank you. So before we close tonight's public hearing and public scoping, any other last-minute questions or comments from my fellow commissioners?
What about the lighting safety for the bicyclists? And also whether the lighting will be not projected up but downward? Is that part of this project?
Most of the cycling or the bicycle facilities are on existing roadways which have the street lights, but we don't propose to put any lighting with any of the facilities.
Great, seeing no further questions, I will now close the public hearing. Since there's no decision or action required of the Planning Commission at this time, do any commissioners have any last questions? I feel like I'm being overly redundant, but seeing none, great. So we will move over to our staff comments. Are there any staff comments for tonight's Planning Commission meeting?
Denise Thomas, Community Development Director. Yes, I just wanted to announce that the Planning Commissioners Academy was wildly popular and it sold out. So we were unable to secure any spaces. So next year when it happens, I guess what we'll try and do is let you guys know earlier so that we can get in, we can get our requests in early. We did have one person that wanted to go, but unfortunately the registration was closed. So I just wanted to follow up with you and let you know what the outcome was.
Thank you, appreciate that. Are there any comments from our Planning Commission tonight? Or any other staff comments? Great. Planning Commission, any comments? Great. So tonight we're going to adjourn. Commissioner Reinhardt, Vice Chair Reinhardt is asked to adjourn. Before we do that, I'm going to announce that the next regular Planning Commission meeting is scheduled for 6:30 p.m. on Thursday, February 20th, 2025, here in the Council Chambers of the Civic Center, located at 3001 Ladyface Court, Agoura Hills, California. And I will defer to you for our adjournment.
Thank you, Chair Roth. This evening, I would like to adjourn the meeting in honor of former Planning Commissioner, former City Council member, and former Mayor Joan Iacovone. Joan was such an asset to this city, and really her memory will live on in the fabric of this community well beyond any of our lifetimes. And she was a dear friend to not only myself, but to my parents as well, and to everyone in this community. And I want to adjourn in her memory this evening.
Thank you very much for that. This meeting is now adjourned. Thank you.